Hello everyone, my name is Siti Rabiatul Adawiyah. In this video, I want to review the Korean film entitled Hope, or also known as Wish, which was released in 2013, where this film is based on the true story. The film begins with Suwon, an 8-year-old girl who lives with her father and mother. They are busy with their own work. On a rainy morning, when Suwon was about to go to school, her mother wanted to take Suwon to school, but Suwon refused, saying she could get to school in 3 minutes by running. Because Suwon talked like that, in the end, her mother just told her to go through the main roads only and not through the small alleys. On her way, she stopped right next to an abandoned construction building where she meets an old man who asks to borrow her umbrella because of the rain. Even though she is hesitant, Suwon agrees to help. That's where something bad happened to Suwon, where the old man took Suwon to an abandoned construction building and brutally raped and tortured her there, leaving her almost dead. Suwon tried to reach for her cell phone to call 911, and the help she called came to the location and took her to the hospital. Her parents, who heard the news that their child was in critical condition in hospital from the police, were devastated to hear this and immediately went to the hospital. When they arrived at the hospital where Suwon was being treated, the doctor who treated her began to tell them that Suwon's condition was very critical, where she had serious injuries to her face due to the bite, and her large intestine and anus were also torn. Suwon had to immediately undergo surgery, but when the operation was underway, the doctor told him that they had to remove the anus and large intestine because the damage was so severe that she would have to wear an artificial anus for the rest of her life. Long story short, the operation went smoothly. When she woke up, in her very weak state, Suwon began to tell her father about the incident she experienced a few hours ago, where she said that at the time she was in so much pain that it made her call 911, so that the evil person who made her sick could do it. Suwon explained to her father about the color and type of clothes the bad person was wearing. She also told her father the reason she said that was because Suwon was afraid that over time she would forget about the bad person. On the other hand, the police have succeeded in finding traces of fingerprints left at the crime scene. But the police have not been able to do this because at the scene of the incident, 10 fingerprints were found from different people. The only way to prove this is that they need Suwon's testimony. The police, accompanied by a special child psychiatrist, began to approach Suwon. Then the psychiatrist immediately gave several photos of the suspected perpetrator, and Suwon pointed to a photo of the perpetrator, where the perpetrator was a former prisoner who had just been released. After getting enough evidence, the police immediately arrested the old man at his house. Knowing that the daughter's privacy would soon become known to the public, he immediately moved Suwon to a special room, and the journalists who were in the hospital see. Of course, the father who realized this tried hard to carry his daughter and run upstairs. Due to the shock while running, the bag for storing her feces broke. Seeing this, the father tried to clean it, but Suwon refused. Because of this, Suwon's psychology began to be disturbed. She experienced trauma from what her father had done because she didn't like the forced physical contact that reminded her of the incident, and since then Suwon began not wanting to talk to anyone, especially her father. She even closes herself up with a blanket because she feels embarrassed if she is seen by other people, especially men. The next day, the trial for the Suwon case began. The prosecutor began to tell about the crimes committed by this perpetrator. It was truly unexpected that this perpetrator continued to avoid it and said that he didn't remember anything about the incident. He also said that he was drunk that day. Because the evidence was not strong enough, the trial was postponed. The child psychiatrist helped Suwon overcome her trauma by entertaining Suwon with images of her favorite cartoon characters. It could be said that this method is quite successful. The father, who saw his daughter smiling in that costume, took the initiative to rent the costume again. Because the owner of the costume felt concerned about his daughter, he wanted to borrow one of his costumes. Then, with the borrowed costume, he was finally able to meet his daughter. Even though they could only communicate through writing, it was enough to make him happy because he could hug her and see his daughter smile. Meanwhile, Young-sok, Suwon's school friend, looks very upset about Suwon's absence at school. So, he takes the initiative to write a letter of encouragement to Suwon which he sticks in his house. A few days later, his other friends also do the same thing, where they wrote letters of encouragement and stuck them on the door of Suwon's house. Suwon, whose physical and mental condition had begun to improve, had been allowed to go home by the hospital. And when she got out of the car, she then saw that her house was full of paper messages from her friends. Finally, Suwon started going to school again. Her father, wearing a cartoon costume, appeared and tried to encourage her. As the days passed, the trauma that Suwon experienced finally started to get better. During the final trial in the courtroom, Suwon then testified once again, where she was given several photos of the suspected perpetrator and asked to point to the photo of the suspect and what she was pointing at. When the court judge asked the perpetrator to make a final defense, the perpetrator still said that he had not done anything. He also said that at that time he was drunk and didn't remember what happened that day. After deliberating, the judge began to give his decision, where the perpetrator was given a heavy sentence, but because the defendant was declared drunk that day, the perpetrator was only given 12 years in prison, and the victim's request for compensation was rejected. Of course, everyone there didn't accept it. They felt that this sentence was too light for the perpetrator, not commensurate with what happened to the victim. But because the judge had decided like that, they, including Suwon's parents, could only swallow the bitter reality of this injustice. Meanwhile, Suwon's father almost vented his anger at the perpetrator, but Suwon asked him to stop. In my opinion, the film Hope is a touching and motivating story about the trauma experienced by the victim and his family's struggle in dealing with it. This film really emphasizes the importance of psychological and emotional support for victims and their families. The legal decisions shown at the end of the film also reflect the controversies and injustices that sometimes occur in the legal system.